Hey, hi, how are you? My name is Felt. I'm your local Magic the Gathering Arena problem child. Sorry, I just thought of that when I hit record and it made me laugh. It's going in the video, damn it. We're talking about my new Azorius control deck. It is a variant on a super meta one that was making the rounds a while ago that I originally edited to fit my playstyle better and fit some cards that I liked more. And then I double edited to double down on a few cards that I realized were very powerful against a lot of other matchups that people got kind of tunnel visioned on because of the archetype you're playing. And obviously the card I'm talking about here is Patchwork Automaton. You might be like, yo, Phil, what the fuck? Who runs Patchwork Automaton in what is very obviously a super controlling Azorius deck? Because you have, Geist Wave, Jawari, Negate, Disdainful, Otherworldly Light. You have Doomscars, Jin-gitaxis, and a Wandering Emperor to cause problems all over the place, as well as a single Teferi in there to just really be a jerk about it. Well, it's a threat. That's the crazy thing. So so if you look here, we don't have that many artifacts, right? We really only have these 8 artifacts. But Azorius is a combo deck, combo of cards in its wheelhouse, so to speak, that combo really well with artifact synergies, right? So even though we're only really running these 8 artifacts, people might get the assumption that we're not running hardcore control Azorius, and we're actually running artifact Azorius, and they will super tunnel vision on the fact that you have a Patchwork Automaton on the field. It's also just a really cheap and easy 2-cost blocker. It's up there with Professor of Symbology as just a solid blocker to give you a hand. It's just something that you can just throw down, and it can be nice to use. The other reason why is that I personally love running Jin-gitaxis as one of my late-game win-con threatening drops. I love them as a card, and even though I know he's not particularly meta at the moment, as he's very easily taken care of because everyone runs 17 forms of removal or just runs massive creatures in their deck, he's still enough of a threat to be a problem. And if you're in the later half of the game and you haven't been drawing your Patchwork Automatons yet and Jin's out, they double down when they drop. So you're getting double value every time you drop one because he copies artifacts. Cartifacts, apparently, is how you say that. But him copying these artifacts means that if you have Patchwork Automaton out and then you play, Cosmos and then copy Cosmos, then you're getting 2 counters on your Patchwork, and then you play another Patchwork, you get 2 Patchworks, which doubles down your counters on your original Patchwork. Same can be said for Reckoner Bankbuster. I feel like I could probably fit a few more artifacts in this deck, however I would lose the controlling aspects that I so greatly desire. You might notice we're missing Farewell. I think that if I'm running Jin-gitaxis as a 7-drop, Farewell as a 6-drop is a little too much. It's really powerful in the current metagame. Honestly, I might, if I were you, drop the Amiria's Call for a Farewell, or maybe just run extra Amiria's Calls. I don't know, this deck is a general base template. The idea being that for early removal, we have early and late removal, honestly, depending on what the opponent's running. We have March of Otherworldly Light, and Jawari Disruption as just early game countermeasures. These will take care of anything that's coming at you that's annoying. Negate is there as just a no-you card. We only run 2 copies of it because it's not super prevalent in the meta at the moment, because not a ton of people are also running very control-y or spell-based decks, in my experience. Maybe the matchmaker just doesn't like me. But the real star is honestly Disdainful Stroke. Honestly, I'd say you maybe even want to go down to 1 copy of Negate and 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, because Disdainful Stroke is really good into any deck that's trying to play 5, 6, 7 drops. Hell, even decks that are trying to counter your Patchworks and Bankbusters with their own Wandering Emperors. Wandering Emperor is a 4-drop. Disdainful Stroke card counters her for 2. And your opponent can have as much mana up as they like, it doesn't matter. Disdainful Stroke will counter that. Very useful. Cosmos Elixir and Celestis are just 2 very nice, powerful artifacts in the deck that gain you life and card draw, or in the case of Celestis, card draw and discard. Memory Deluge is here to help you hunt for stuff if you can get up to 4 mana. Doomscar's a board wipe, obviously. If you don't know how powerful the Wandering Emperor is in control decks yet, I don't know. She's very, very good. You can use her to make your chump blockers actually kill stuff. As a surprise, they have first strike and are 1 power stronger. Or a just, your Kami of Transience is now exiled and you can't be recursive with it. You also run a copy of Teferi here. Teferi is just a really good ramp option. If you can get him in on turn 4 and your opponent doesn't kill him in the next couple of turns, he will ramp you to Kingdom Come, because he's essentially giving you 1 extra mana per turn, and often a free attack, or even a free use of something like Reckoner Bankbuster, or being able to double tap mana like with Celestis. I used to run this deck with Replicating Ring, but I found that quite often I was just getting flooded with artifacts, and that's why I swapped them out for Patchwork Automatons, technically. I just really feel like Patchwork is great as a chump blocker and a great way to pull the rest of the deck together. Run a single Field of Ruin. I technically would be running 4 Mistgate, Hedgegate pathways, but I just don't have the cards. I run 2 Hall of the Storm Giants for my creature lands. I run an Aganjo. I run an Otawara. Honestly, I could say you might even want to run 2 Otawaras, just because it's an extra removal spell as well as a land. Probably the same for Aganjo. I'd say predominantly you want your 4 Deserted Beaches and 4 Pathways, though, because you have a lot of things that cost 2 of a mana type. Like, Jin is 2 blue, but Doomscar and Emperor are 2 white. Memory Deluge is 2 blue, and then Amiris is 3 white. So I'd say just make sure your mana base has enough beaches and pathways so that you can still get up the 2 of whatever color mana you need so that you're not flooding out on 1 color. Field of Ruin's just, it's Field of Ruin. We run 4 marches, so typically if they're running a creature land of any variety, you just march it for 0 and it becomes 1 cost removal to exile their land. Super powerful card, but Field of Ruin is there if you don't have a march or just you're actually hunting for mana fixing yourself. That's kind of an underrated value of Field of Ruin IMO, is that you do it on your opponent's end step to mana fix yourself. You sack it to pull out a basic of whatever color you might be needing at the moment. My sideboard's pretty basic. 2 Environmental Sciences to help with mana fixing, Reduce to Memory to remove stuff off the field, Teachings of the Ancients to help with card draw, because really early game you will be playing out your whole entire hand to keep up with a lot of the aggro decks in the meta right now. And if you can get yourself in a board state where the opponent has nothing, and then you can just Teachings of the Ancients to refill your hand, you're doing great. I'd say Mascot Exhibition is like one of your win cons. If you have the cards for it, run 2 fucking copies. It's that good. I'd honestly say run 2 copies of Reduce to Memory as well right now, because while it does give your opponent a creature, it's a creature that can be exiled for 0 with March of Otherworldly Light. But overall, it's just a heavy controlling deck. There's a lot of ways that I've tweaked and edited this deck, but this is the best version that I've found to use. It's not my favorite deck out there at the moment, but it is very consistent on getting off the ground. The sheer amount of 2-drops can be a bit of a problem. If you're running into a deck that is hyper aggro against you, the number of 2-drops can get in your own way. However, because you have so many 2-drops, that if you can get past the first few turns and get a solid, stable board state, and by solid, stable board state, I mean they have nothing on the board because you've marched, Geistwaved, and Doomscarred them into oblivion, then you'll probably be sitting pretty, because then you can get to Fairy and Wandering Emperor out to start building up a board state. You can eventually get out Jin to start countering spells and doubling the amount of artifacts you can play. It's not the greatest deck around. I think it has solid potential. I think it's probably like a solid B+, A- tier as far as decks right now, in my experience. It's easily gotten me out of plat when I'm not trolling like I have been lately. But yeah, highly recommended this deck. Feel free to edit it as you wish, and either way, thanks for watching and hanging out, and I hope to catch you in the next one.